Thank you, thank you, thank you. And give it up. I don't know if my mic is on. If it's not, I have a loud voice. Can you hear me in the back? Yes. Yes, I see the hands back there. Awesome. All right. Well, guys, first things first, welcome. Thank you for being here. Hope this is going to be an informative, transformative, incredible panel for you to kind of help you guys on your ways, help you kind of navigate what it is in sports that you want to do. And it's an honor to have two highly regarded, esteemed, executive, and handsome individuals up here to help out with that. I heard a few oohs back there, so that's not. So just so I know who we have in here, do we have any Sacramento Kings fans in here?
Yeah.
Whoa. Thank you, man, in the front. Absolutely. So at least we. Is that Malik Monk or Halliburton?
It's a Halliburton.
Okay.
Right.
Sir, if you could see your way to that back, please. Security? No. But no, that's awesome. How about Sacramento Republic FC fans? Woo! Okay. Everyone else in here that's quiet, y'all what, Lakers fans or Warriors fans?
Go Warriors!
Yeah, sir, you can see your way out too. So, I'm teasing. No, of course, at the end of the day, it's awesome that you guys do have a love for sports, regardless of the team, franchise, of what sport it is. Part of just being here and being passionate about sports is awesome, and that's really what this panel is about. So let me shut up here and actually turn it over to the individuals up here who you guys came to see. So Dr. Robertson kind of gave a brief introduction or bio on both Todd and Alex, but just for the sake of this, since a lot of you guys out there probably want to be in their shoes one day, especially looking at where they're at, how they were able to elevate in their respective careers and get to where they're at, I want to just take a few minutes and have each of you guys just kind of describe your background and how you got, what inspired you to get into sports, how you got into the positions you are today, and what your journey has been like, because I'm sure we all have different journeys in life and different paths to get to where we're at. So if you guys just want to give a few minutes just to kind of give your background, how you got there and what inspired you, we can start with Mr. Alex Rodrigo here first.
Great, thank you. Well, good morning. First and foremost, I'm excited to be here. I've been at this for a little while now, I think just a little over 35 years. I started my career at 17, and really I kind of get to the end of it. I never envisioned being in sports at all. I didn't have that on my mind. It wasn't on my radar. I enjoyed playing sports, but I actually joined the Air Force at 17, graduated high school early, and decided that I would, I felt the duty to serve, and then on top of that, I figured that I could also get my college education through the Air Force and experiences as well as, learn something. And so, incredible career in the military. I was in the bomb squad for 8 years. It's run by the Navy. It's called NAV School EOD. All 4 services, all ranks go to the same school. So I was very lucky to get a slot. I tested well enough to get in. And if I didn't pass, then they were going to pick the next job for me. So the reality of, the stakes were high. But I learned a lot through that, and still, even then, I didn't have sports on my radar. But at the end of the day, I don't want to get too in-depth in it. I'm exactly where I needed to be and where I want to be. I absolutely love what I do. I never realized that this job even existed. So in many ways, I feel blessed that it was presented to me, about 12, 13 years ago. And it's really a culmination of every other career that I've had that has brought me into this position. And so something that I always tell folks, although I didn't come up through the traditional sports management or coming through as an athlete or whatever your path is, but there's some traditional paths that get you into this business. I realized quickly how long of a line there is out there to get into this business. I understand the diversity of not only just who we are as a human fabric, but also our skill sets. Sports has changed dramatically. I'd say just in my 12, 14 years of being in this business, watching the amount of talent that's coming into this business that has zero experience in sports, right? We're all contributing in different ways, from content creation, marketing, digital assets, data analytics. I mean, when you really think about it, it's exploded. And some of that existed prior to that, but I think we've encouraged more of that change, and I'm a product of that. The individuals that recruited me were looking outside of sports and looking for somebody that had a specific discipline and a specific skill set. And so because of that, I recruit the same way today. I still look at the traditional verticals because I think there's some wonderful and beautiful talent that's out there. But at the same time, when we're kind of jammed, when you're looking at small market, large markets, and you're trying to find someone, sometimes I really encourage folks to look outside of that. What are we really trying to recruit for here? So my career, like I said, has spanned over 35 years. I've had several jobs, all very successful, all things that I was passionate about. And if I leave you with anything today, it'd be about putting yourself out there. We talked about, with Major League Baseball coming to Sacramento, someone asked me, hey, what happens after they leave? And I said, well, I'm not worried about 3 or 4 years from now. I'm concerned with what's in front of us right now. This is our moment to audition. This is our moment to tell our story here in Sacramento. And even with the non-Kings fans in here, I'll say this, I've worked for 3 leagues now, Major League Baseball, the NHL, and the NBA, Someone asked me, you thinking about going to the NFL? And I said, nah. I said, right now, I love what I get to do because it's so dynamic. We have over 200 events. I'm going from a concert to a game to a family show to a big conference, back to a basketball game. We've had 2 weeks of this incredible dynamic content that we've had from Kelsey Ballerini to, you name it, every other concert that's around the corner in addition to Kings basketball. But going back to the teams and your love for the sport, that's the most important thing. We're all part of a community, right? The sporting and entertainment community. Because sports now and entertainment live together. And all of these spaces that we're building, and I'd love for you to hear Todd's story about what they're about to embark on, they're all really, as to Vivek's words, communal fireplaces, right? It's more than just the sport itself. And then you look at the diversity that's in the room and also the skill sets. We're all coming at it from different angles and creating these incredible moments. And these are memorable moments. We're in the live entertainment business, right? And so the responsibility you have to put that show up and then tear it down and rinse and repeat and do it again, it's really an exciting time for all of you. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy doing these things, because the future's bright in sports entertainment. And you look at team valuations, you look at organizations that are growing and doubling down and building new facilities. I mean, it is a billion-dollar industry that is waiting for you. So.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Good. I want to come back to a few things that you said in that, but first, before I do that, I want to go over to Todd and just the same thing. We know, obviously, you're a professional footballer before you got into your executive role, but really, how did you transition into that and your background?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I think. Tough act to follow, by the way, with Alex here. So thanks for that. But I've always been, somebody who loves sports, loves being part of sports. It is what I've done. It's something in my blood. I love playing all kinds of different sports growing up. Basketball, probably more than soccer, until I had to make a decision in 9th grade. They forced me. And it was hard. I was crying, and I knew I wasn't going to be a 7-footer, and I had to make a choice at that point. I played tennis growing up. I loved baseball. I loved football. I mean, I just loved all sports. And my dream, it's fun kind of looking back at some of my drawings and things that they'd ask you when you're a kid. And I loved, and always wanted to be a professional athlete. That was my goal. But I also knew that was a long shot. I kind of took it one step at a time. I was never somebody who was big, tall, strong, fast, all those things. But I had a drive, and that drive is what kind of kept me going every step of the way. And I had to go one step at a time. So first for me, it was making my high school team and getting on that, and then advancing on and ultimately going to college. At that point, didn't know again if I could be a pro athlete, but kept trying, kept pushing. And I think it was my sophomore year where my coach came to me. It was sort of at the time what felt like a demotion. I was always an attacking player. I was a midfielder, loved scoring goals. That's where all the heroes are, right? But he said, hey, we lost both of our outside backs to graduation. You're a lefty. We need you to play left back. And right then I just felt like, that is not, I don't have a defensive bone in my body. I don't know what I'm doing back there. But it was the thing that actually changed things for me. That next season, I learned the defensive stuff, and I used all my attacking ability, to get forward, to cause problems for the other team. And it's a position that wasn't sexy, but it wasn't a position that a lot of people played. So I got really good at it, and it opened a lot of doors for me. I ended up getting drafted after graduating. And had a 13-year career in Major League Soccer, mostly with LA Galaxy, was drafted by the Earthquakes. We won a few more than we lost, but what I'd say about sports, and I think, you know, all of you who are part of that, there's a heck of a lot more failure than there is success. I think that's something that I've learned, that those failures are what drive you. Those failures, you have to use those adversity that you're going to see every single day, whether it's in a game, in a moment, you know, when your ankle hurts, when you're, you know, feeling tired, when your coach is yelling at you, when, you know, there's 50 reasons every single day that you can say why you didn't get it done. But can you use those to drive you? Can you figure out how to still push? And for us, you know, and I think for all Sacramentans, Urbs Indomita is the city motto, and that means indomitable city. We're the indomitable club, you know, and we live by that. We live by the idea that resilience, overcoming obstacles, that's how you get things done. That's how you accomplish things in life. You know, when I was sitting in your shoes, I knew I wanted to play more soccer, but I didn't know anything beyond that. And it took a long time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, and ultimately, as I progressed in my career, there was nothing scarier than sort of what I would call the real world, because I did what the coach said. I knew what I had to do to you know, try to win games, but beyond that, it was scary because I didn't have the confidence of doing things outside of the field. So for me, it was just trying to find those 1-2 little things that I could do. If I started with coaching, I did some coaching on the side. Then it started with joining our players union to try to, you know, get involved on the business side of sports a little bit while still being a player. So, you know, now you're sitting at the negotiating table with the commissioner, with other league owners, you know, managing your own locker room, other locker rooms, and how that goes in a collective bargaining process. It was an incredible experience for me. And then, you know, ultimately diving in, and what I finally realized was the thing that really got me with sports and why I love it so much, why I've never been, you know, burnt out, was the team aspect. Being part of a team, being part of something, you know, Alex said it well, being part of something bigger than yourself, and that is what drives me. That's what I love. It's about the people that you surround yourself with, whether it's your teammates, whether it's your community, all those things. That's what's great about sports, and we have a platform that can do things that no one else can. When the world's so divided and everyone's got different you know, beliefs and opinions and different backgrounds, sports brings all that together and sort of puts it all to the side. That's what I love about it.
That's awesome. And he mentioned team several times. You know, one of my favorite acronyms, I'm sure you guys have heard this before with team, together everyone achieves more. And I think that's really something that truly just embodies what it's like, you know, working for a franchise, working for a team, or just working on a partnership or an organization with someone. Now, something that Todd said in his story there, in his background, that I thought is a good teachable lesson for everyone, is when his coach approached him and asked him to play the different position because he's left. So, and like he said, well, this may not be the most sexiest position out there on the field, but he did it. And I think a lot of times in life, you may have to go to the door that opens for you. It may not necessarily be the door you think you want to go through, but you want to, you know, being a team player, like Todd said, he was like, okay, I'll do this for the team. And ultimately, he found success in doing that. So the reason I say that is because by the way, any soccer people in here? Anybody wants to, okay. Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo? Ronaldo. Messi, okay. It's like LeBron or MJ, you know, it's a debate to the end of time. But one of the things that Alex said earlier is, you know, there was a line, a lot of people trying to get into this. And I want to, the next question I want to ask you guys is, when you look at working in sports, both of you guys have been able to make the transition into sports 30 plus years, 8 years with Republic FC in your role. You guys have had a lot of success in your respective roles, but as we all know, getting into sports may not be the easiest thing to do because there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of people that want to, you know, be in that job. There may be other people who may have connections or whatnot. So I guess my question is to you guys is, what would you say is, you know, some tools or advice as far as getting your foot in the door, and as far as you know, putting yourself out there and being able to open up that door that's competitive, and a lot of people may be standing outside of that door trying to get in? What are some things that maybe they can do to distinguish themselves, or set them aside from the next applicant or whatnot trying to get in?
Yeah, I think Todd touched on it, but I've said for years now, this idea of getting comfortable with failure, right, and understanding that. And you think of Todd's accomplishments, who's made it as a professional athlete, which is a 1%, right, opportunity, and now an executive in sports, that's another 1%. So really overachieving and high performer on this side, which is great. But he's being honest with you, and we all are. And so how do you get through those failures, right? You and I were talking about being from LA.
Oh yeah.
And I've always said this. The fact that you're here today, right? I was born and raised in Hollywood, California, no claim to fame. But when you think of the world of acting, right? You're auditioning. You are rejected more often than you are accepted. And you're signing up for that. That's the life you're about to embark on, right? And you think of it as a professional athlete, if it's an executive, or folks, we're trying to get into this business. The fact that you're in the room and you're here and you're auditioning by just being present. It's the minute you walk into the room, you raise your hand and you say, hey, I'm gonna put it out there, whether this is the role for me today or tomorrow or whatever, I'm here. And I think that's the first step in understanding that, is being comfortable in that space, much to what Todd had said about being comfortable with the idea of not maybe getting that role or being accepted and understanding how to shift. And quite honestly, I actually I had interviewed for the job. A friend of mine called me for this job at the St. Louis Cardinals in Cordish, and they flew me out. I went through the interview process. I didn't get the job, but they offered me the next best thing. And I spent 2 days, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not doing it. And a buddy of mine called me and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I didn't get the job. And he's like, yeah, but they gave you another great opportunity. It's not the one you wanted, but you get a seat at the table. And I just kind of had to get out of my own funk and just realize, like, yeah, you know what? And it set me on this path of understanding, to your point earlier, about taking something or doing something. It puts you on the path, and it's maybe not the immediate road, but it's a road, and you're active in that space, and it gives you a greater opportunity to continue to audition. Once you're in, right? Once you're on a team, regardless of your position, you're being seen and heard. And having that opportunity, I'm not asking you to just take anything. At some point, you have to snap the line and decide truly what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, I wouldn't want somebody who's there just for the sake of trying to get somewhere else. Like, I've always taken what's in front of me and done the best that I can with it, with a tremendous amount of passion and vigor, and understanding that, yes, I may have other goals, right, down the road, but this is the job I have. And this is the job that I'm gonna commit myself to and do a great job, because you're auditioning the entire time. And we see it happen. And I'll tell you, one of the questions that I like to ask during the interview process, I'm interviewing typically mostly senior executives, vice presidents and so on. But I love getting into different, interview process sometimes, with our entry-level managers or maybe someone who's an intern. We bring them on board, and I'll always ask this one question. I guess I'm charging you with this responsibility and kind of getting ahead of it. So if you ever interview with me now, you'll know exactly how to, answer that. But I'll take your resume and I'll put it to the side. And I'm going to open with what typically you're asking yourself when you walk out of an interview. I'm going to ask you, I'm like, what's not on this piece of paper that I should know about you before you leave this room today? And you'd be surprised how often that jams somebody up. Because you're ready to talk about what's on the paper. Yeah, I read it. I can read. I got it. But I'm trying to dig a little bit deeper because I have 10 or 20 of those pieces of paper that are all accomplished, that are all fantastic, that could all do the job. But what makes you different? And I really want to tap into that. And it's your chance to tell me. It's an open audition, right? Instead of having to go off a script, and I look at my man here because we spent a couple days years in Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
But
and I got a lot of rejections too. I'll tell you that much.
But now we've put the script aside, and I said, well, then just do you. If you sing, dance, whatever, I'm using obviously metaphors in the audition, but then tell me something about yourself and why you want to be here. And sometimes that's a really hard question for someone to answer, especially when you're caught off guard. So think about that the next time, and if you have that opportunity, and if you can in the audition, find a way to get there, right? The auditions or the interview is two ways, right? So you can help steer that. And if you can find a segue to get into your point, then use that opportunity when you're in front of somebody to tell your story, right? Don't dismiss the process, but at the same time find a way to integrate a piece of yourself in there right? So that you can leave that on the table and make it memorable. And we've seen this in sports, we see it in business. Someone makes an impression, you may not get the part or the job or the position that day. But 5 months later, a year later, we're sitting around, we're collaborating, and I'm like, hey, do you remember that young lady that came in? You know, she didn't get the part, but oh my God, like, this is her, or this is him, or this is them. Like, it honestly, at the end of the day, you'd be surprised how that stuff makes careers, and you'll look back and say, I'm glad I put it out there, because you have one shot. So what have you got to lose? If they're gonna say no, then, you know, make it a big one.
No, that's good. What did Gretzky say? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, or something like that. I think we've all heard that, or Jordan said that. Somebody said that. But you know, one of the things that I really like about what he said there, and I think this is good for all of you guys, is that at the end of the day, leave an impression. Even though you may not necessarily get the job you're interviewing for at that time, Alex will remember you later down the line if something does come up. So I always think, just because you may not get that job while you're in there interviewing, that doesn't mean that they won't consider you for something else, whether a week later, a month later, heck, even a year later. There's several times that I've been called back 3 years later for something I auditioned for, or interviewed for, something just because they remembered me or remembered something that I did. And that's a really good point too. Something that's not on your resume you can talk about. It's funny, right after Alex said that, I was sitting thinking like, dang, what would I say that's not on my resume? I still haven't come up with anything. So that is a really good question. It's something to think about while you're in there. But at the end of the day, you know, always just be your best self, because that's what's going to distinguish you from anyone else. So I guess
before you, I've got it.
Oh.
Your 50-yard pass in Folsom Prison. Remember that? I think he's got an arm. So we were in Folsom Prison playing soccer.
Yeah, let's give some context. Yeah, why was that?
That's a whole different story.
You know, let's get
That's a whole different story.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But no, it's funny what Todd was saying, and Todd, I'm going to ask you this question as well. But Republic FC, they do an incredible just job of outreaches within the community and reaching people, whether it's mental health seminars or symposiums, or they make a monthly trip over to Folsom State Prison. So you know, there's one time out of the year they invite all the media there. So the particular situation that he's talking about, some of the prisoners there, or incarcerated persons there, had challenged me to a little flag football thing. And if you know me and my athletic background, I never back down from a challenge. Okay, I don't care how big you are. I don't care who you are. I am not going to back down. In retrospect, I should have backed down from this challenge because I humiliated myself out there. But also, my arm is like a noodle now. I can't throw it nearly as far as I used to be able to. I was actually going somewhere with that story. Totally forgot. But at the end of the day, you know, I think one of the things that I wanted to emphasize is just that it's up to you guys to kind of make that impression when you're interviewing, when you're rehearsing. Even here, you guys at the end of this, you know, we'll have a time for Q&A, and I'm sure you'll be able to meet these incredible gentlemen on the way out. And you know, every interaction that you had is something that they remember. So you know, always keep that in mind. So Todd, and thanks for pointing out my, you know, my glorious arm, that, or lack thereof. So I guess the same thing to you when you're interviewing people. Obviously you had to interview Neil Collins, but everybody, you know, even the people that come into the program, the interns, the lower level, entry level positions, all the way up to the executives and coach and things of that sort. What are some of the things that you look for in applicants, and what are some of the ways that people who are interviewing for, you know, jobs within Republic FC, what they can do to set themselves aside?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, it's what kind of teammate are you? We've got student athletes in the room. It's something that, you know, athletes have a skill set beyond just the field. It took me a while to figure that out myself, but being a student athlete, being a teammate, being part of something bigger than yourself, it's no different when you're working in an office, when you're working in any sort of field. You have teammates, and how can you show that in an interview process? How can you make somebody's job easier? How can you help the person next to you, as opposed to, you know, making them look bad so you make yourself look better. You want to do the opposite of that, right? You want to be part of something bigger, and that's what we do in sports. Yes, we're in sports, but really we're in the people business at the end of the day. And everything we do, a successful team, a successful office, people coming into our buildings, fans, that is all people. And so how do you show that? How can you have that come across? And you have to be your authentic self. You can't fake that. You can't do anything other than be your authentic self. But think about that in terms of what you've lived every single day as an athlete. How can you now bring that into a role? And there's ways, and you can always think about that. And so go into it knowing the skill set that you have, some of the experiences of adversity, of dealing with things, because every single day, Alex and I and Kevin, are dealing with heartaches, right? And difficult things that happen, and how do you overcome that? There's challenges that are thrown at you every single day. You don't know what they're going to be when you wake up, but at the end of the day, you got to keep going. You got to keep finding that pathway forward. So understanding that adversity, being comfortable with it, and showing that you are somebody who can be in the trenches and are going to show that mettle to come out stronger. That's what it's about. Those are the types of people you want in an organization. That's who you want to go to war with, as we call it. And that's what it's all about.
Do you mind if I'm going to piggyback on this, the
please.
challenge and the adversity piece? I just want to throw this out there because I know sometimes Sacramento or the Kings or any of our teams maybe get a little bit of some blowback about either decisions that we're making or not making. I just kind of want to set this out there, having been someone who's traveled the world, the power of sports, have seen it first and foremost on so many different levels. I want you guys to understand, you may already, so I may just be reminding you, but when you look at Sacramento, one of the reasons why I came out here, I have been recruited over the years, and even while I've been here, and I've still decided to stay. I decided to come to Sacramento, and I decided to stay in Sacramento. And there's a few fundamentals, right? I love the absolute organization of the people that I work with. I truly do. This isn't just some publicity statement. The amount of work that we've been able to accomplish in a short period of time, I got here in 2018, but the arena opened in 2016, but they fought to keep the team here in 2013. And when you look at what Vivek and our ownership group have done, Martina, John, and the rest of my colleagues and our executives over the period of time, and some that have come and gone since then, some that are still there, when you look at the body of work of what you have here in Sacramento in relation to what's happening in the world in other major markets, right? These are billion-dollar projects that you have an arena that's one of one in the world. Architecture design, it's a wonder. Sustainability, 100% solar, it's doing all the things. This was back in 2013 that they were thinking about it. That's how innovative and forward-thinking that the organization has been and continues to be, that these conversations were happening then. That vision took off then. And it is something that we're doing now on a global scale. So I just want you to understand like the magnitude of the opportunity of being able to watch the Lakers or the Warriors, which, listen, I respect them. When I came into this business, the home and away, it's a dynamic, and I get people, man, I'm not a fan. I'm like, great, but you're a fan of the league, you're a fan of sport, you're part of our business ecosystem, you're part of the community, I welcome you, it's all good. It's gonna happen, and as players and as executives, we might find ourselves playing or working for a different team, right? But we're all still part of that community at the end of the day, which I think is the most important thing. But when you double down on the community that Sacramento has built, I'm going to throw some stats at you. At one point, we've ranked 5th in the United States in total number of tickets sold in entertainment, 6th in the world at one point as well. We're outpacing San Jose, Oakland, and San Francisco, which are all major markets as well, in relation to mighty Sacramento.
Wow.
And that's not a popularity contest. That's based on the economics of tickets sold just in the entertainment side of the world. And then you look at the basketball piece. Sacramento Kings, we were awarded the Team of the Year, which is our championship trophy for business operations. Sacramento's experienced over $7 billion worth of growth since the team has, stayed and opened, right, since 2016. When you look at all the national, global touring artists that come through here, we now have Major League Baseball right around the corner. That was all because of the Sacramento Kings, our ownership group and our leadership group, who believe in what lies ahead. And so for the next 3 years, we'll be auditioning, right, with Major League Baseball, Eyes on Brand, and the opportunity to put, if you've ever watched a movie, and you see when someone's eating a bag of Doritos or the Sony laptop or the Mac laptop, the logos, right? There's a great way to do the very direct messaging or, right, subliminal messaging as well, product placement. And that's what we're going to be able to do. And it's why it's important that we continue to work together. And every time Another team does something amazing against the Sacramento Kings. I get it, right? As a fan, it's like, damn, had that happen on our watch. But the reality is that it's happening in our building, our league, within our city. It's happening in our marketing. We're in the discussion, right? We're in that program. And you really have to utilize those opportunities, right? Utilizing those challenges and those failures, right? To still tell your story and do something. The fact that we can do that here in Sacramento, I don't take that lightly at all. And what we're able to do today is based on that vision and that, commitment to be able to do that. And now we're doing like really crazy things over the last couple of years. We're powering a supercharging array by using the clean energy in the arena. We're now become utility providers, and we're continuing to double down on sustainability. For those that don't know, at the arena, 90% of everything you eat and drink in the arena comes within 150 miles of the building. That's sustainability, that's organic, that's thinking forward. That happened, right? Discussions in 2013, opened in 16, and we're still doing it today. And then we were awarded through ESPN, which is the insider's vote, right? Of people who are in the business to be the arena number one. Yeah. So
Number one.
small but mighty Sacramento's alive and well. Baseball's right around the corner. I just always feel like, we have to remind ourselves of what we have, because there are other cities that would love to take this away from us. They would give an arm and a leg. They would write a huge check, and the fact that we have that here is something that we can't take for granted. But if anything, we have to continue to build on it, and it's why friendships like these and moments like these allow us to double down. And I really think you guys are the future, and we have a lot to fight for. We have a lot to believe in, and the future is bright.
Absolutely love everything that he said right there. A resilient city, an indomitable city. One of the best things, I've been working in this market for about 6 years. I moved here from Texas, was where my last station was at. One of the things I'll never forget out here in Sacramento, this was 2 years ago, out in Doco. This was after the Kings snapped the 16-year playoff drought, or 16-season playoff drought, 17 years, which was at the time the longest in North American sports, as far as the 4 major sports. And they snapped that. And I just remember the electricity that was in the city, within Doco, not just in the city, all throughout the area. And to think that they almost took away the Kings from the city that loves basketball, that is loyal, that comes, and just watching that, and to think that they almost took that away from Sacramento was just, it was just, flabbergasting, but remarkable at the same time. Because that shows the support that this city has, and also just the resiliency of everything that the organization has gone through, which of course Alex has seen a lot of it. But one of the things that he said throughout that was just, adversity is going to happen, but you got to find ways to persevere through those challenges. You have to find ways to hit those challenges head on and to rise above it. And I think that's just a testament to not just the phenomenal a team and leadership team and executive team that we have working for the Kings, but I just think that's a good lesson in life. There are times where you're going to be beat down, demoralized. You may wake up and be like, man, why am I doing this? What is the point? But it's in those times you find out a lot about yourself. Like Todd said with his answer in regard to the people that he hires, and once, like, a lot of times you find out a lot about a person in the hard times or through adversity and things of that sort, because that's what really, breeds character, I think, or develops character, is when you're going through tough times and just being that teammate to stand there and persevere through it all. So I'm really glad, Alex, that you, just kind of gave that background there, because it's not always going to be easy. You guys may look at jobs in sports and say, oh, it's always easy. You guys sit in your suite and, everything just comes together. It's kumbaya. It's not. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that Alex and Todd are doing that is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. But they love what they do. They're passionate about what they do, which is why you guys see the success that they have. Another thing I want to get into is just because of the age of this group here and all of these young people being aspirants to get into this. Social media. I know 20, 30 years ago, my generation didn't use social media as much in order to get jobs or to be seen for jobs or to use it to apply for jobs. But also on the flip side of that, social media can also get people in trouble. As far as what you're utilizing, your TikToks or your Instagrams or Facebooks and things of that to do. So I guess my question to you guys is, when you're hiring, especially for the younger generation, do you look at their social media, and could that either A, benefit them or C, hurt them on getting the job? And also, what are some ways that they can brand themselves on social media to make them an attractive candidate, or to make them an attractive intern, or somebody that you may look out for? Because I know everybody in here probably doesn't utilize TikTok in the way that they probably should, or in the manner that they should. So how much does social media weigh into your guys' choices when selecting, especially younger people?
Yeah, I mean, I think with social media, I'm probably the wrong person to ask it, because I'm also not on social media. Really, when I hear that question, you don't hear about, wow, they got the job because of social media. They usually don't get the job because of social media, right? Like, there is more downside than upside in general with that, I would say, because, that never leaves you. Things that were said 10, 20, 30 years ago don't go away. When it's in the digital world, it is out there. And so, having a conversation, that's something that's a little more transient. But when you put something down and, you're literally almost, imagine us, but having this conversation right now, but we're in our living room, on our phone, having a press conference out to the world. That is what Twitter, X, that is what that is now. You have a press conference at all times, and you are telling the world what you think. I think there's a lot more downside than upside. Doesn't mean you can't have beliefs, you can't do good things. How we see our club and sports in general is we want it to be a unifying force. There's going to be people of different backgrounds, different beliefs, different religions, different races, all those things. The beautiful part about sports, come together, bring those differences together, go arm in arm to cheer on your team. That is what sports does. It's as simple as that for me. That's why we go to Folsom Prison. How else would we connect with those folks? All we do is roll out the ball and we play. And it breaks down barriers, and it is a beautiful thing, and we love it. So for me, social media, does a lot more harm than good.
You've been vetted by quite a few people to get there, and my position on it is, obviously from a generational standpoint, I'm a little, playing from behind, but I believe in the power of it. I mean, there certainly has the ability to be seen and heard, the ability to connect with people across the world. You find your community. Like-minded individuals. You can find yourself through social media on that. And I've always remembered this back in the day as I was kind of growing up, and somebody said, look, you're not going to be judged by what you say you're going to do, about what you've done. So at the end of the day, then my body of work is truly the representation of what's going to open or close a door for me. And so I'm careful about that, and I think to Todd's point, and Kevin, it was just about curating that, what message you want out there. Context is lost today, right? Sometimes it's just like, okay, that was a quick hit, but we don't really know what happened before or after. So I try not to dive too much into that, because it turns into this wormhole where all of a sudden I'm trying to, assume, and then that gets us in trouble. And so really it's ultimately, you have to understand yourself, which is why I go back to, if I'm gonna ask you the question, what should I know about you that's not on this piece of paper? That's your chance to, talk about something. If you wanna clear something up, great. You wanna look ahead, great. It's totally up to you, And you gotta remember, I may already know some things. Right? So it'll be interesting in that moment of how we, engage with one another. I think for me, social media, as powerful it is and needed, I would also say that, the power of being present is one of the biggest things that you should really hone in on. We spend a lot of time, including myself. We're all down on our phone. Our messages, our ability to communicate is shortened, right? We're quick about everything. We don't provide enough depth or context at times, and we're just getting to very matter-of-fact answers. And I think the ability to have some depth, have a presence, have eye contact, and it's the reason why I asked that question as well. I want to see somebody talk. You don't have to tweet or text me or whatever, I'm sitting right here, so talk to me, because we're in the people business. This is an engaging atmosphere. We're teammates. I need to understand what's between your ears, right, and in your heart, in order to understand what we're going to do when we're going. I say I use the military piece because of my experience of, I wasn't an athlete in that sense, but I was certainly tip of the spear, very, special operations type stuff. And who you're going down range with matters. We all have a professional skill set and can do the job, but I need to understand who I'm playing with. I need to understand if Todd's having a good day or a bad day. He needs to understand that from me, because that affects your performance. If you're going through something really difficult in your life, we need to understand. And sometimes that may be captured in social media, and so the context behind that is, why were you frustrated or upset? Well, take a minute to find out, and that may be the difference that gets you the job or doesn't. But point being is just learn to coexist. We have no choice. It's here to stay. I think it's a powerful tool at the end of the day that continues to provide, a lot, but at the same time, don't forget to be in the moment, because when they take that away and you don't have your phone or your social media, then who are you? Because you're sitting in a room and you're talking to me, right? We're not on our phones, and I'm not scrolling through you. I'm talking to you.
Really good answers right there. I think, you guys can relate, I see. I think one of the things that, just to take from that, from what both of them said, what Todd said, you will always have a digital footprint out there. So be careful what you, there's times I'm thankful that they didn't have social media out when I was growing up in the 90s and 80s, because, there were times I probably said things I should not have back then. So, I think it's really good that Todd said that, because, what you put out there, even if you delete it, is always out there. And we've heard time and time again where people may have been hired or something, but, they saw things that they had said and they're like, okay, this doesn't fit with our brand. We have this thing called, I think, cancel culture now, where, if you say something that's polarizing or whatnot. So I think it's just good to keep that in mind, as a lot of young people are on social media enough. Remember, it's, that's forever there. And I really like what Alex said. I'm old-fashioned myself. I like eye-to-eye, face-to-face contact, being able to engage in a conversation, whereas now a lot of people, just, and it's not like they just are texting. It's like these abbreviations, WYD or TOT. I'm like, what are they saying? How is this a sentence? So, I think it's good just to remember, good communication skills would never go obsolete. That's something that would never go out of style. So while it's good to, you can use social media to your benefit, but just remember those things. Now, I know that we're running out of time, and I do want to hold time for Q&A. By the way, Dr. Robertson, I was looking at the clock on this computer, but it went, the screen went off. So anyway, so I just want to, before I get to the Q&A, I just want to ask these panelists one last thing. A lot of times, when you're getting into your field or into your career, a lot of times it may be advantageous or beneficial to have a mentor or, someone that you look up to, or an inspiration or things of that sort. Who were your guys' inspirations growing up, getting into this field? And, who would you say kind of inspired you to get to where you're at? And why was that important in your journey?
I'll go first. It starts with my dad. I think the example he set, he was a fireman, but just the selflessness that he lived with, he was a sports guy. I think just having that and being around that, I absorbed a lot of, the sacrifices that he made for our family, for our community, all of that. And that always stuck with me. So I think first and foremost, it was my dad. And then there was teachers, there was coaches along the way, and ultimately in the business world, as I was looking to transition, it was who in the organization that I was, at the time I was playing for the LA Galaxy, who in that organization I looked up to. There were several, but Chris McGowan, who went on to do big things in the NBA. He's now back in Major League Soccer. But he was phenomenal about just giving me little bits of advice and little things, starting with, hey, here's a publication that comes out every single day called the Sports Business Daily. Read this and just start learning about the business of sports. You're in sports, you play sports, but read about this. Now you learn about marketing. Now you learn about advertising and tickets and all the things that you don't think about when you're an athlete that go into the business of sports. And that was really, really helpful for me. And just those little things, didn't take a lot, but he literally gave me a login to his subscription, and that made a huge difference for me.
Interesting. And I like he said, Dad first. Remember, always listen to your parents. Always obey your parents. Always love your parents, because they want the best for you. So, and then he said teachers and coaches. same thing with your educators, your coaches. Some of them may be in this room. You know, they will probably have the biggest influence on your life. So always listen to them. So I'm glad you mentioned those, Todd. Good point.
Yeah, I think for me it's a mixed bag. You know, family, friends. I mean, I can point to so many people that for me I've always taken a little bit from everyone at any point in your life. It could be a long-term, you know, relationship. It could be a short-term. I mean, someone you met on a plane and you just talked to them. You know, I think that's the power of being present. It's not so much about what you're going to say. It's about listening, right? You start with listening. And if you really tune into what's around you, you're going to find a lot of inspiration, some motivation. You're going to find a sense of direction. You might find some warnings too of things you want to stay away from. Tune into the world that's around you. And so, you know, sure, it started with family. And, you know, my father was afflicted with Parkinson's disease at a very young age for me. So I look back at those times and it wasn't about, you know, he didn't feel sorry for himself. He leaned into it. And if he could get up and get going, then I could get up and get going. I really didn't have any reason to complain, right? He's dealing with this terrible disease, and so being exposed to that and watching, although my parents are separated, I share this because not all of us have the same family dynamics. We're all coming from different, you know, maybe single parents or divorced parents or maybe different circumstances, right? And I think being open to that and understanding that we're all coming from different places, right? We may not be able to relate from the family dynamics, but I think the experiences of just being seen and heard, it's why I, you know, enjoy doing these things. I get to meet wonderful people. We may have seen each other, we've never really talked to each other, but here we are. I say this, you know, jokingly, but there's a lot of speed dating that goes on, right? In sports, right? You're at a stadium and arena and a friend's there, and you're like, hey, and another friend, or players and athletes. You know, that's a moment to connect with somebody, even as short as it is. And Todd hit it on the nail. You know, we're in a position of service, right? Even as executives. Put the titles and all the things that come with it, but it's a massive responsibility, and we have to not only serve our communities but each other and be good teammates and take care of one another. And that's your position of leadership. Just means you're responsible for them. And when you take that to heart, it's your family, your team. You're going to do everything to take care of them. And when you think about when you're responsible for someone, their burdens are your burdens, our burdens. We're going to do this together. And I think if you can hold on to that and really understand that, you know, excelling and becoming a position, you know, or a, you know, professional athlete comes with a lot of responsibility, right? And how are you back to your team is incredibly important, and that identity is going to stick with you, whether it be social media or being present. That's the identity and the reputation that you're going to carry, that somebody understands that you're selfless and that you care more about the group, right? It's the power of the community coming together to do something than it is the individual. So I've seen a lot of talented people not get the part because they couldn't be good teammates. And at the end of the day, you really still have to coexist with people. Unless you're going to sit in a dark room and just work on a computer, and maybe that works for your identity, that's perfect, you know? That's why, to me, it's not really about wrong or right. You know, you got to find what works for you. And then how does that fit within our system, you know, together? And, you know, it's about being honest and being present. But, yeah.
I love that. And a few things that he said there, and I really want you guys to get out of that, is one, coexisting. That you're able to do that. Two, inclusivity. Making sure everyone feels welcome. We're a very diverse industry, diverse world in general. Three, being open. I like the fact that he used the speed dating reference because you're talking to everyone. But in order to be effective at that, obviously you have to make sure you're not on your phone the whole time so you can be present and whatnot. So I think those are just some really good tips that are applicable not just to this field, but just to life in general. Okay, I promised I have a few more questions, but I do want to allow you guys some time, because we have about 10 minutes left. I want to allow some time for a Q&A, so you guys have been sitting up here listening to us talk for the last 50 minutes or so. Are there any questions out there? Oh wow, hands are going up like hotcakes.
Kevin, Alex, and Todd, thank you guys for just being here. It's a great opportunity to just kind of listen to you guys talk and, you know, receive feedback. As I was listening, I was kind of just thinking about our situation as JUCO athletes. I feel like, yes, we're here, yes, we are trying, yes, we are persevering. That's everything I think we've been taught. That's why a lot of us are in JUCOs to persevere to be where we want in sports. But in perseverance comes a lot of uncertainty. A lot of times we don't know, okay, is this perseverance going to lead to where you think it's going to go? Is it going to not? Are we going to fail? So my question to you guys as successful men and people who have been through the things we've been through. What did you do in times of uncertainty to make sure and ensure that you guys would be successful? And what motivation did you have to get there?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I'll keep it brief because I want to make sure we get a lot of our thoughts across. I like showing up here because we were talking about it earlier. Like, we understand what it's like to be you and where you're at, right? And a lot of it can be anxiety and a lot of questions and good anxiety. I'm not trying to go on some public service announcement here. I'm just saying, like, we understand that even in our careers now, we're still constantly battling what's the next thing. Change is inevitable. Change is going to happen, and it's either going to happen for you or against you. So I'm a big believer in changing, right? But I also believe in staying the course. And that's going to be the fine balance of understanding, do I stay the course, right? That's perseverance and commitment and tenacity, or do I need to pivot and change and maybe step back, which ultimately leads to 2 steps forward? That's really hard to answer. Your heart's going to tell you. I think if your heart's behind it, if you believe, then we believe, right? And honestly, and I know that sounds, I'm not trying to be Tony Robbins up here and give you some, but generally these are just fundamentals that I've used in my life that, getting up and staying involved really takes a tremendous amount of belief. And, I think ultimately things will tell us. Sometimes we're slow to change, but ultimately it's understanding that change is okay, and maybe letting go of something and grabbing onto something else is okay. I've had several careers, and everybody always asks me, like, what are you doing? Right? And I felt like I was ahead of the curve because I've seen a lot of change in the professional industry today. Everyone's changing jobs, which in the generation I grew up, it's you do something and you do it for the rest of your life. And unless you're really lucky, like Todd, who knew exactly what he wanted to be and he was committed to it, right? That's amazing. But I had those moments, but I had probably 5 of those moments, and I just leaned into it. And then when I was ready to change, I changed. And some of that was either forced change, right? The circumstances, the dynamics, myself, the world changed, so I changed, right? And sometimes a little too soon, sometimes a little too late. But the idea was that I'm still evolving and changing. It's why I'm still an advocate for the fact that we need to coexist. We need to still be open to change. We need to understand things. And even if I don't support it, I still allow it to exist because that's the world we live in today. But that's allowed me to make those changes. I can't tell you the formula, at the end of the day, but you'll figure it out, and the fact is that you lead with hope. It's there. We're going to be, I think that's the thing, right? Eternally optimistic can get you in trouble, but I'm okay with that trouble because the opposite of being pessimistic is just a miserable existence. So the reality is, hey, things will get better if you believe they'll get better, and you just got to work at it. And it might take some time, but the thought of it alone is enough to get me up and keep me going.
Yeah, I just add real quick, it's a really good question. Uncertainty can be uncomfortable. Outcomes you'll never be able to, predict or know what those are going to be, but you can control the process. So focus on the process. When you go through that, you can always analyze, all right, what were the steps that got me here? And go back to that process, refine it, analyze that, not the outcome. The outcome, that's out of your control. You can't control whether the coach plays you, whether you get the job, but you can control your process all along the way. So focus on that, and then you can sleep well at night.
I'm Jasmine Richardson. I'm a freshman at College of Marin, and my question is, what is something you wish you knew before you started your journey in this industry?
Journey.
So I just want to make sure everyone heard the question. What is something they wish they knew before they started in this journey? All right.
Yeah, I guess I can start. I wish I knew that I will never have it all figured out. I think when I was sitting in your shoes, the uncertainty was something that bugged me. I like to have sort of a path. I like to, know where I was going to go, but you just don't. And, I'll use the example of when I was drafted to the San Jose Earthquakes. I thought, all right, this is going to be my team for my whole career, and I had this romantic idea that was how I was going to go. We win a championship my first year. My second year, I get hurt, and I'm out for most of the year, and then I get traded. And that was devastating to me. I felt betrayed. But at the same time, and I got traded a few times in my career, 4 to be exact, and that was always hard, but those are things that shaped me, and I figured out how to continue to keep going, how to, not trust the process, but I guess keep refining. Why is this happening? What's going on? And for me, it was about using those, that adversity ultimately to not know exactly where you're going, but to keep going, keep keep doing what you're doing, and ultimately good things happen, right? I mean, you got to keep going. You got to have that perseverance. The path is going to wind a little bit, but ultimately you're gonna end up right where you need to be. I think that's what you said earlier.
Yeah, and I'll take the other end of that perspective, because there's no wrong or right, and believe in that. I think sometimes too much information, right? There's this paralysis by analysis, the idea that, now we're trying to predict outcomes. And so knowing everything can create also a challenge for you, which leads to inaction because you're still trying to get the information. And I go back to a lot of times I'm sitting in team dynamics and there's this influx of information, right? And we're looking at all this data, especially in the world that we live in today. And so I would usually like to simplify it. I'll grab a remote control and I'll be like, hey, if you look at a remote control, the traditional remote control these days, right? The big ones, with all the buttons on there, you're only using like 5 of them. Volume, on, off, maybe source, channel, right? That's 4. Who knows what the 5th is? Oh, on, off, whatever. But the point being is that when Apple came out and simplified that, right? You looked at, it's a simple wheel and only maybe 4 or 5 options, that's it. There's a place that you gotta coexist between too much information, not enough. What's worked for me in my career is sometimes not having that information. I'm glad I didn't know because I probably wouldn't have done it. Honestly, and I'm thinking man, I was crazy for thinking about doing that. But sometimes you need a little bit of that kind of, maybe the lack of information or being naive in some ways can also protect you because you may overthink it. You may create more roadblocks and challenges because you're overanalyzing it. So, I'm not trying to take a position, I'm just saying that I think it can be too much or maybe not enough. So, are there times in my life where I look back and go, shoulda, woulda, coulda? Sure, But then I ask myself, would you have changed your decision because it ultimately led to the next thing, right? And that's all that's the only thing I can work off of. So I go, well, you know what, I had to go through that in order to get to this, Could I have accelerated it? If I'm trying to avoid conflict or failure, good luck. Not gonna happen, right? But I do wish you success, right? And I want things to be great for you. And they will be, But before or after, I don't know, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's funny, this uncertainty and everything we've talked about, it reminds me of that meme. I'm sure you guys have seen it before on social media, but it's a meme and it goes, your plan, and it has just a straight arrow going from where you're at to your destination, and then it says life's plan, and then it has you rolling under, going through the pits of hell and all of these other things, and it's just we always have a plan where we're going to get from here to here. It's going to be straight and narrow, and then life's plan takes us all the way around, and you still get to your destination, but sometimes it's not in the way that you think you're going to get there. So
hello, my name's Remy Oshewa from Diablo Valley. My question is, a lot of times when we're going through situations, you said a lot of times that you guys said that use your failures to overcome and to move forward. But how do you analyze your failures, and how do you learn what to take from your failures and what to leave behind you so that way you can move forward and keep on going strong?
I'll say this quick because I think Todd probably has some good feedback on this as well. I take a lot of different inspiration from sports, right? When you review film, right? And you look at that, we do that in business operations. We look back at our mistakes. We look back at what led to that. What created the conflict? Was it self-inflicted? Was it external? Was it internal, right? Was it performance-based? Was it between the ears? Or was it, they're just better, bigger, faster, whatever. Okay, that's the outcome. I think the team dynamics and individual dynamics come back to having self-awareness, right? And understanding, you got to take a good look at yourself, especially if you're going to step in a room, and if you're going to tell somebody something about themselves, you better have a good grasp of who you are, because they may just turn around and give it back to you. And I've seen that happen in film review. I have great relationships, and every job that I've had, I have a great relationship with the GM, AGM, front office, our coaches, our players, and I've sat there before, and I'll give you this. I sat there with a captain, co-captain in the NHL. We dropped the game the night before, 6-1, right? Pretty bad, especially in hockey. I get called down by the head coach, and I'm sitting there between both guys, and they're like, hey, we want to talk about the ice last night, right? The co-captain says it, and he's like, the ice, and the captain stepped in and said, hey, it's not the ice, because the other team found a way to put 6 goals in the net.
Ooh.
Okay? So they were having their moment, but the point being is that, there's this honest dialogue about what really is the problem or the issue, but then sit in a room and make it a safe space in order to download and understand exactly what's happening so that we can get better. But you have to self-reflect. You have to have some self-awareness and understanding of what our limitations are, and then maybe plan or adjust around them.
Yeah, I'd build on that. It's so easy to finger point. It's so easy to say it's his fault, it's her fault, it's the ref's fault. That happens all the time, and you can do that all day long. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to look in the mirror. You have to self-reflect. I've got a quick story. 2009, we were, this is with the LA Galaxy, we were in a championship game in MLS Cup. We were heavily favored against Real Salt Lake. We had 2 weeks leading up to that. We went into that game thinking we had it. And I'll remember thinking back, there were guys in the locker room talking about, no, let's not get rings, championship ring, let's get watches. Because you never wear the rings around, they're too big and bold. So we were already beyond the game. And we caught it, and we talked about it, but we didn't catch it maybe fast enough. And the mindset of our group was already beyond the game and beyond that moment. So when things got a little bit hard in the game, which they always do, we crumbled, right? And we lost the game, and we lost that championship. And that sticks with me forever. So it's about having that self-reflection, going back and saying, hey, you focus on the moment, being present, and absolutely doing the job that you have to do.
Hello, my name is Michaela Wells from American River College, and my question to you is, what made you really get into loving sports, and as well as how did you overcome mental blocks with that?
All right, so I'm assuming that's not for me. That's for our esteemed guest here. So I'll let them, because I have an answer for that, but we don't have time. So I want to, I guess, what's brought your passion for it, and I'm glad she said mental blocks, because there's a lot of mental blocks that I think that we put in front of ourselves.
Yeah, I love sports. I had an older brother, older sister. I was the runt, so they were 5 years, 6 years older than me. And so I was always chasing them. I was always kind of getting beat down, physically, mentally, everything. Brotherly, sisterly love, but it was tough love. And I think that pushed me to be a little bit better. And the mental blocks, sports are, I don't know what the percentage is, but it is darn high. On what that is, because you can overcome a lot between the years. And if you have that, and if you have that edge, and you have the right mentality that I'm going to take you down, then that goes so much further than brute strength, than athleticism, than all those other things. Then Mike Tyson's comment, if you get punched in the mouth, what happens? If you have it in your head that, hey, this is what's going to happen when I get punched in the mouth, you're already expecting that. So I think the mental side of sports, that's what I think our club at the end of the day is about. It's literally about a mentality, this idea of indomitable and overcoming and persevering. That is, if you can make that your identity, you are going to go so much further.
Yeah, I think on the mental block, I'll always, listen, as a kid, I used to cry a lot, and especially as a big guy, they were like, what's wrong with you, let it out, I was crying because I was very passionate about stuff, especially if I was going to get into, I just take things really personal, and so I leaned into it. I mean, I'm not going around crying now, but I'm just saying like.
Hello, my name is Joaquin McGee. I'm from Clovis Community College. So I just recently switched my major from kinesiology to history. For the longest time, I wanted to be a head coach, and I just wanted to be a PE teacher to pay the bills, right? But I recently discovered a newfound passion for teaching. So I still want to teach and coach. However, I feel like by switching majors, I've kind of closed off a path into becoming something more than a head coach, maybe an athletic director. So what would you say to those of us struggling with feeling like by choosing one path, we're closing down another?
First of all, I want to tell you, I switched my major around 25 times in undergrad, so don't feel bad about that. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the short answer for me is I've accepted change. I mean, I've created change in my life, so I didn't look at it as, I'm closing one thing. I was opening the next thing. So I focused on that, right, the opportunity. So if there's some indecision or hesitation, right, you got to be honest about that. Because that's what maybe you're still maybe clinging on or thinking about it, and that's okay. That happens, right? Because this is the fork in the road, and then you're kind of down that other road, and you're like, maybe I should go back and jump on that other road. But I think that comes back to being committed to the process, right? And so when you're making the decision, and sometimes you can backtrack. Look, I never thought I'd be in this career. So all these other roads that I took ended up here. some form or fashion, I got there because some innate quality or whatever your guiding light is that empowers you. There's certain things I realize I'm not going to be an astronaut, probably won't be a figure skater, probably won't be a professional soccer player. There's things I've already closed the door on, right? But I'm real about that. But I love what I'm doing and I love where I'm going. And if you love that, then stick to that, and not what you didn't do.
Alex at the figure skate. I would love to see Alex do a triple axel on there and spin. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's good. You have multiple passions, right? And I think that's healthy. That's a good thing. Commit to what you're doing. I think commit to your decision. You've made it for a reason. Commit to it. Put all your energy, effort into that. That doesn't mean you've closed off another part of your life. It just means that you're going down this path and you still have this other part. In coaching, you can still do that while you're doing other things. And that's the beautiful part about coaching. And it might be at a level that works for your schedule, right? And it could be kids, it could be, who knows? But I think that part, you can always scratch that itch of coaching. But I think going history of what you're doing, I think, commit to that.
And I guess just to sum it all up, just know you don't have to have it all figured out right now. I'm 42 and I still don't have my life figured out. So, like the Cowboys. But at any rate, with that being, by the way, I'm just, but no, with that being said, don't think you have to have it all figured out right now. It is okay to continuously just go on. But I think what they said is very good. Always just have an idea, a passion, and as long as you're pursuing a passion or staying on that, that's always a good thing. But don't feel you have to have it all figured out right now, because as life evolves, as things evolve, so do we, and so do our interests and stuff like that. So I'm sure you'll be on the right track. Whether it's history, kinesiology, whatever the heck, you'll succeed at that. All right, guys, we are way over time, so I'm gonna wrap it up. But before I do, I just again want to give a huge round of applause to Alex, Rodrigo, and Todd Dunivant for coming here. On another hour because I'm getting so much out of these two guys up here and I'm learning so much. I wish I had this 20 years ago. But really thank you to both of you guys for coming here, sharing your knowledge, sharing your wisdom with these young kids. I'm sure that's going to go far. And also, if any of them want to email you guys or reach out to you guys, is that... Oh, okay. Yes, Dr.
I feel like because he has our information.
He's the gatekeeper.
That's a good way to funnel. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for allowing us to be part of this. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys so very much.